every state, including Oklahoma, has money from Congress that has been allocated to their Department of Transportation, and its sole purpose is to build trails. Now, I am not anti-trail. I have one a mile from my house, love to take my horses down from it. There are times and there are places where they are appropriate. But the entire federal economic plan for the Plains states is to remove all industry and all agriculture and replace it with tourism, which is trails, and energy production and storage. So trails fits into this, and there's a website called Rails for Trails. It's going to work, and it does work exactly like our federal roads. You know, you got your federal highways, you got your state roads, you got your county roads, you got your city roads. The trails are set up the exact same way, from city to county to state to federal. And they're all going to tie into each other and connect to each other. And so, financially, now, I have seen money to build them, but I have not seen any money to maintain or upgrade them at all. I actually saw the one that's a mile from my house has been recently taken over by the state of Kansas Parks and Wildlife. Before that, it was run by volunteers. And several of these trails around the country, particularly the Rail for Trail program, which is run by volunteers in specific states and sections. And they are kept and upgraded by volunteers, right? We have seen where these guys get audited for the money that they're using. So they don't even like their own people, right? So constantly being audited. So then the question then became, well, how much does it cost to maintain them? I mean, how much does the city have to consider into their budget to maintain them? And we finally got a really good answer when Fort Smith, Arkansas, did a walkability plan that they introduced. And in it specifically said that you will need to, budget annually, you'll need to figure in $5,000 per mile annually into your trail program to keep it maintained. So the question that I ask then is if you're going to build these, and there may be places that are appropriate to build them, is do you have it within your budget to maintain them? The other thing that I noticed is that they become center and catches for homeless camps. So do you have the ability to police them? You're going to have additional officers, or you're going to have to commit additional resources to policing those trails. And then the third thing to consider is something I didn't even consider until I talked to somebody in the State Investigative Department of Kansas. What's that called? Anyway, they what is it? Kansas. It's the investigative KBI. Thank you, Kansas Bureau of Investigation. So I was talking to one of the fellows there, and they said, well, you know, one of the problems that we have, particularly with the Rail for Trail in Kansas, is running drugs. I said, excuse me? What do you mean? He said, oh yeah. He said, do you know how much drugs or people you can transport on the back of a four-wheeler going down these trails? Oh. So they are becoming an avenue for drug trafficking and people trafficking that I didn't even consider. So that's additional resources. So homelessness, even in my little town, so my little town has what, maybe 60, 100 people in it, population. And there's another little town of about 40 people in it. And I live right smack in the middle. And the trail is a mile south and it runs east and west, right? So these little towns, Allen, Admire, Bouchon, towns of 1 to 200 people, even they are having problems with homelessness. And it's usually at the city water tower coming right off of the trail, or a building right off of the trail. So that's something to consider. So I don't want to be totally anti-trail, but that's a big, huge red flag for me if I see districts and then talk about reducing traffic and cars. When it hit our county, in Lyon County, I was looking at our city comprehensive plan. They were eliminating traffic. And they were taking out the parallel parking and to, or taking out the slant parking to parallel, and some of it was just taking out parking completely. And I went to the city zoning administrator. I said, you don't understand. If I bring my big dually truck down to load it up with feed and stop at the pharmacy here, there's no way I'm going to be able to pull in my truck. And he looked at me funny, and he didn't say anything. At the time, I didn't understand that I wouldn't have a truck. Silly me, right? That's why he didn't understand why I was so confused. So the whole reason for eliminating traffic is to hold you in that place. It's not just about climate change. It's not just about saving the environment. It's to hold you there. Because if they can hold you there, you cannot go out to that farm that might be hiding in the woods growing tomatoes and buy your tomatoes there. You're gonna have to buy it from the market capture of this whole scheme. So it's not just about controlling the feed, it's about controlling the consumer pricing. Which gets in a little bit more about this white paper, because what that white paper actually is about assigning a credit system, point system. So I actually sent Marjorie a video, and I'll have you send that out with. It is not unfamiliar. It's called point rationing. We used it in World War II. You can find the videos that they would show in the theaters to help people understand point rationing. And this was primarily on food or tin or steel or rubber or things like that that was needed in the war effort. And what they did was give you stamps. And you were allocated so many stamps, and say there's a shortage of canned peas. So now canned peas were going to require the highest point so that they could get as many peas as they could over to the soldiers overseas. And they want to create a point system, a point economy. So this would not be a capitalist economy or a Marxist economy or a communist economy. This is a point ration economy on absolutely everything. So it'll be assigned to, now that in World War II was the stamps, right? Well, we have digital now, right? It's also, it'll be like a credit card. And you're going to get an allowance. That's what that paper is how to determine the point allowance that each family or each individual should have. How to determine that. And they're using, you know, when you go buy a can of goods and it gives you the percent of daily value, they want to create a standard like that, but for each individual. And then you're going to be allowed so many points. Now you get to choose how you want to use your 100 points that you're allocated for that day. But your weapon, you know, that little pistol that you've been looking at, it's probably going to be 400 points and you're not going to be able to do it. It talks about saving. You want to go on a trip to New York. Well, okay. So that means you're going to have to purchase less through the week so that you can save up enough points to get on the plane in order to go take your vacation to New York City. That's how that's going to work. Now China has taken that and just ran with it. It's already implemented. There is a wonderful documentary that kind of takes place from 2020 to 2022 that is already implemented in China. And what they're doing is using health. And they are, if you go to scan to leave your neighborhood, it won't let you because you scanned as having symptoms even though you didn't. And they have a point system, and they call it the social credit score, but it is moved into more economic goods for them. And so in this documentary that I was watching, they actually did the workup of that. So the most points that you can earn, total ways to earn, there's about 106 ways to learn. There's over 10,000 ways to lose points. So, and interestingly about that is it comes down to labor, because one of the ways to earn points is to volunteer to work for free. See how this goes? And so that's an entire economy system that they want to set up. The problem is that when you get that partnership so close between government and corporation, that you have too few people running logistics. And the reason we are seeing news articles about China having problems with people in their apartment buildings starving because of the next health crisis isn't because they're denying them food because they want to kill them for health crises. It's because they had logistical problems getting the food distributed. So when you have too few running that big of an economy, you're gonna have logistical nightmares. So you're gonna see food sitting at train stations in boxes that aren't going to get to the people because of those logistical nightmares. That's the biggest problem with this whole entire thing. The more interesting thing is what I call the God factor. This is doomed to fail in the United States. And it's already, we're one of the slower nations where this is picking up. New Zealand is farther ahead. South Africa is overrun by China. Australia is farther ahead. Europe, they got cameras on every corner now in Europe. The United States, for a Western nation, isn't buying into this near as quickly. And I'm like, well, why? And how does that predict whether or not this is going to go all well? And it made me think of Fort Hood, Texas. My husband's retired military. For many years, we were stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. Fort Hood, Texas is unique. If you haven't been there, if you were to close your eyes and imagine Texas and put your finger in what you think is smack in the middle, you probably landed on Fort Hood, in the middle of Texas. And it was taken for World War II. It was not always a federal land. It was grabbed for World War II. And the people who lost their property moved to the north side, where people who, they scattered all over. But most of them went to the north side. That's where most of the original base was built, was on the north side of Fort Hood. But then you also had the FEMA camp before they were called FEMA camps. And that was your labor, because remember, you had the Great Depression going on at the time. If this land was being considered and taken, you had a large labor population that didn't own any property and didn't get compensated. So they got moved into this FEMA camp, and which is called Flat. It's now primarily around Flat, Texas. And they absolutely hated the military. Hated it. Soldiers are going to steal wives and steal daughters and steal everything that they can. And they even had these little subgroups. You had the bullet pickers over here, and you had the range guys over here, They just hated the military. And their parents could tell you why. And then the next generation came along, and they told them stories. And then the next generation came along, the parents really didn't remember great-grandpa's stories all that good. So now it's to the point, and especially my kids' generation, when they walk up to the next kid, say, why do you hate soldiers? They'll say, because they steal women, steal children, steal everything. They can't tell you the why or the history of that, right? It's now a common culture. And that is never more pinpointed than during the big Summer of Love with all the Antifa riots that were going on everywhere. I checked out an Antifa Facebook page in Kansas City, Missouri. And there is this Antifa post by a guy on there who, remember, these are anti-communists. They want to destroy America. And at that time, they were saying that the reason we need to get rid of the Constitution was because it was racist, right? So I go to their page, and here's this post, and they're talking about the next protest that they're doing. And they said, now remember your rights. If you get arrested, you have the right to remain silent. And you have the right to an attorney, and they can't keep you from assembling, and the quotes where they're protected. And I thought, well, how funny is that? These anti-constitutionalists are using the Constitution. So I don't even think they realize that liberty is ingrained into their psyche as much as hating soldiers was ingrained to those young people around Fort Hood. So it's doomed to fail. Doomed to fail. The problem is that it's going to do an awful lot of damage along the way as more and more of it gets implemented. So it is now in our colleges, this type of planning and zoning, 15-minute cities, and is now in our zoning administrators within our towns and within our cities. It's going to take a while to change that culture at that level to allow them to let them know that it's not a good way to go. And I don't know how to address, because it's particularly here in Oklahoma, I'm more familiar with home rule states. Oklahoma isn't quite the home rule that other states has. You have an awful lot of legislative oversight. So I don't know how to address that to pull that back. I firmly believe subdivision regulations over entire areas should be illegal. You cannot call a park part of a subdivision regulation. It's not, shouldn't have those laws over that. So I don't know how to address it. I do know that there is ways to fight back. And I have on that back table there a whole stack of them. There are resolutions that you can do, and they do work. American Students for Liberty took your resolution passed by this committee, added it to a bunch of other resolutions, and it worked. It worked. So they pulled back 30 by 30. BLM and all those parks are announcing restraints going on all of that. State of Oklahoma also has petition initiatives. So if subdivision regulations are passed on your entire area, you can do a petition initiative and force them to put it on the ballot. So, and I have copies of that up there. Oklahoma is actually very clear. I mean, they even put the wording on the law, that the preferred wording that they want you to use, and all you gotta do is fill in the blanks. So that is a method that you can do. One of the things that we do is standard letters. So when we would ask people to send in a letter against or for or whatever, less than 2% would, right? Because it takes a lot of time and I don't know what to say and that kind of thing. So we made form letters, and we just made it easy to where all they got to do is put in their address and phone number and and sign it on the bottom. And what we found then is we got a 17% return on those letters going in. It stepped it up. Now, we didn't say you have to use that letter. We said take it. It has the address that you want to send your letter to. You write whatever you want. You use it. You don't use it. You take the letter so that you have the address that you need. And we left it at that. And we found that most people use that standard letter and sent that in. And that's important because when they pitch these ideas to Congress, to city, to county commissioners, they claim it's what the people wanted. And those letters are proof that it's not true. It's not true. Which brings me back to the survey. I saw the survey for your downtown plan here. And it claimed that the majority of you would like to give up all your vehicles. So what I would like to tell you is that there's a little bit of a scheme going on with those surveys. The first thing that you'll notice is the survey companies are usually out of state. The reason they're out of state is because while not impossible, it makes it a tad bit more difficult for your county or your city attorney or even your state attorney general to go after that survey company for not producing correct results. The second thing to consider is they invite their friends. So a lot of these things require hearings and require public input. And so then they get on the phone and they call all their like-minded people and they bring them down there, and then they put a little blurb on the paper that nobody reads on a Tuesday morning that's really tiny in fine print. And then they bring these people in and they say from their friends and their body, this is what they want. So, and then the most frustrating thing is then you go in and say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? And they like to wave their finger. Hey, you should have been paying attention, even though we deliberately hid it from you. So, one of the things that we fought back in National Heritage Area up in Kansas, Nebraska, and then we dropped a Freedom of Information request on the organization behind it. And then we dropped a Freedom of Information request on some of the federal organizations that were behind that. And one of the things that we came across was a request for bid. And it's got another name when it's architectural work, but it's basically a request for bid. And what they were looking for was a architecture to draw comprehensive planning and zoning regulations for 3 counties around Fort Riley, Kansas. And in it specifically said, right there in black and white, the purpose of these comprehensive planning and zoning regulations will be the method in which we inform the people that their land is now in a joint use planning with Fort Riley, Kansas. So imagine how that's going to go in. I'm a farmer. I want to put up a silo to put grain in. I'm going to go into my county administrator and I'm going to get my petition my permit, and he's gonna say, no, you can't do that. Your land is in a joint use planning with Fort Riley, Kansas. You're gonna say, when did that happen? And he's gonna say, how dare you?
Yep.
Not paying attention, even though it's said that they're gonna pass this plan, and that's going to be the method in which the people are going to be informed. It's absolutely nuts. Already seen it, yeah. Yep. And so, all right, I'm getting hands up. I think I've covered everything. I'll go ahead and
My big question is Tulsa and Oklahoma City got put under this 15-minute city zoning without any, but everything happened exactly. Have you found or have you witnessed anybody trying to go in and say, we the people didn't want this? They're taking out the parking near downtown. They're doing everything you say. And I don't know how to start something like that, because the commissioners, I've written a few of them, the city councilmen, and I don't think they're awake enough to even realize what's going on. Right. Except for the people that are behind it pushing this.
So, let me tell you where my success is and where my failures are. Let me tell you my failure first. My failure was when I discovered that they were trying to turn my farm into a park. Was anger, and I acted angry. And I went into my county commissioners angry. And there was never anything more striking, the lesson in that, than when the largest landowners who also own businesses, these were the richest people in the county, called me up and said, we're gonna have a meeting with the zoning administrator, we want you there. And I said, no, if I go, all you're gonna see is how mad I can get at the zoning administrator. And they said, well, it's not gonna happen if you go, and we're not gonna believe you, and no, it's not gonna happen. So finally I agreed, and I said, I tell you what, because the building has windows all across the front, I will come in 10 minutes late, because if they see me coming, they're gonna cancel that meeting. They don't want you to know what I know. And they agreed to that. So when I walked in, right behind me was one of the county commissioners. He saw me coming. And he came in, he sat down in the back of the room, and I went up around to the front and I sat down. Now, as I walked in across the people, I heard them talking very politely, very nice. So in the minute they realized I was there, they started confronting the zoning administrator. Now the night before, at the zoning board meeting, the zoning board voted to remove all the language that referred to private property as public use. Overwhelming 7-0. They voted for that, okay? It's important detail. So these guys are yelling at the zoning administrator in this meeting. They didn't need me there. They had it. And they put him in tears. He's literally crying. Now the woman, the mama in me, kind of feeling sorry for him. And I said, Sam, why don't you tell these folks what happened at last night's zoning board meeting? And he turned to me, using you as an example, and he said, Angel, that vote didn't happen. Well, naturally, the whole entire room went, what's going on here? And I started immediately requesting the minutes, the agenda. Sam always sits at that zoning board meeting with a tape recorder so that he has help to do minutes later on. And he's saying, oh, we didn't do it. We didn't have it. Oh, I was there. So finally I turned to the commissioner in the back of the room and I said, Commissioner Briggs, my husband and I were there. We sat in that meeting. We witnessed it. And immediately that whole room turned on that commissioner. And I left when the death threats against the commissioner started happening.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, I probably better not be here. So I left. And the irony of that is that I let my anger overcome me in the meeting. So these people who are turning to their commissioner saying, if you implement this, this is what's going to happen. They called me later and said, Angel, whatever personal vendetta you have with Sam Seeley, I want nothing to do with it. They were reacting to my anger. And after the situation was over and everything all settled down, that's what they remembered, was my anger. They didn't remember any of the conversation that was there. Fortunately for me, everything was in black and white, and they came around in the end. But I lost a lot of ground and a lot of time by acting in anger. So that's actually a prayer I say to God before every meeting. Please hold my tongue, bite it, so that I don't speak in anger. Otherwise, anger always. So when you're dealing with these city administrators and county commissioners, I have learned they are the first victims. They don't stand a chance against these pros who've been doing this since the 1970s. So don't make that mistake that I had made. So the success is I had a cop. You know, I grew up in a pretty abusive situation as a kid, and I remember being returned to that house, and the cop said to me, I know nobody's listening to you, but I need you to keep telling. You need to keep telling, you need to keep telling, you need to keep telling. And that's what I do. I don't care if anybody calls me a liar. I don't care if they make a threat. You're not going to shut me up. You just keep telling. We made posters, we plastered them everywhere. So one of the lessons that I learned from that whole initial beginning fight was, in the beginning, I relied heavily on social media. And I might get maybe 8 people show up to a hearing at the next zoning hearing. So finally, I started putting ads in the newspaper, bugs or beef, because if we adopt this, that's the direction we're going. You want bugs or beef? So this was back in 2019, before they even started talking about having bugs in our protein. It just so happened that the architect and the authors of our zoning regulations that brought this on to us had another company that they owned called Kraft Crickets, where they believe that bugs would be the protein of the future. And so I made these ads, and what I discovered was that people were cutting them out, and they were taking them to the commissioner's house. They were showing up at every commissioner's house or at every commissioner's meeting. So what they're doing is, even though nobody reads the newspaper anymore, somebody did at a local coffee shop, cut out that advertisement, took it to the other coffee shop, and it spread virally. And that's when I realized, hold on a second, most of your landowners and property owners are elderly folks, right? Very few of them have social media accounts. So it costs money. You know, all of these papers lean in one direction, and it's usually not in favor of us, right? But they are desperate for readers. They will take your money. That's what I discovered. Now, I even put one in the Denver Post, in the Kansas City Star. I mean, you can't get more left-wing than these guys. And but if you agree with them, they'll be like, well, you know, I said, how about I put paid advertisement on it? Okay, all right, we'll take it. And they're desperate. So the other thing that we did was we started dropping freedom of information requests to see what they were up to. And so say we fought back that ideal and that position, right? Then we would drop a freedom of information request afterwards to find out what their response was to us. And then we would adjust how we talk to people from there. So you also can intimidate. So most of these ideas, especially your zoning folks, because they're from those colleges and your local colleges, right? Because it's coming from that area, and they have a God complex that they are God. Because if you look at the main people that are behind this, not just the corporations, but your colleges and your executives, when it comes down to the very basic element of the climate change argument, is that there is a population of elitists out there that want to be in the Garden of Eden with their close personal friends, and they don't want you there. The idea that's part of that locking you down into the city. And so they get offended very easily. How dare you question them? Good goal, right? You start dropping freedom of information requests, even if you know there's nothing there, they're gonna get intimidated. You're gonna rock them a little bit, and they're gonna start paying attention, which makes them start lying to commissioners in a way that the commissioners can catch it.
Where do you file the freedom of information? With the body you're questioning, or is there a government side?
Well, that depends. If it's a government, every state, every city, every county is a little bit different. Some of them have them on their county where you can drop a freedom of information request right there. If not, then I usually write a letter, and I have a couple of things there. So open records requests, they're all called open records requests, right? Now, these laws came into place before there were printers, before there were copy machines, before there was newspaper distribution. So open records was literally that. They had to open the books, and then you could go in and see them. So all those laws are based on that. So they legally have the right to charge you for copies. and time to go search those out. Because, so what I do is I put in there, the documents that first I want them to send it to me via email. You save money there. And then if it is going to be more than, say, $50 or $100 or whatever I decide what the budget should be for that, then I say, if it's going to be more than that, please let me know, and we'll arrange an appointment where I can then go in and look at what documents I want to copy. That usually compels them to give you the documents, because they don't want you going through their papers. So the second thing is to keep your date specific. So if you go wide, I want all your documents, communications regarding this subject all the way back to 1999. They're gonna be no. So so start small. I want all your communications with this architect company that you see listed in your zoning, whoever that engineer is. I want all communications, all memorandums of understanding, all surveys done in the last 1 year. And then based on the information you find from that, you drop more. And you don't have to drop them one at a time. There's a dear little gal in our area that would go into the zoning administrator's office 2 or 3 times a week with 2 or 3 different. Oh, that was interesting. I would like to see that resolution that you passed on this date and minutes and the agenda that led up to that. And she just kept doing that until the zoning administrator quit because he got tired of just filling out freedom of information requests. So, go ahead.
I just want to confirm what you were saying to be true, because we had a similar situation when we were looking up all the OTA documentation. You have to be very specific because they will go, well, you didn't really specify. So you have to nail it down to every possible verbiage, possible dates, because they will give you the least amount of information that they can.
Or don't settle. So if you go broad, because I have my broad, I want all communications regarding a national heritage area. It was Kansas-Nebraska Heritage Area Partnership. I want all communications regarding the Kansas National Heritage Area property, right? Kansas National, yeah, that thing. Including memorandums of understanding, email communications, records of phone calls. I mean, I put it all in there. And their first response was, we don't quite understand. You send them the exact same thing. Because if you start negotiating what records, then they know that they can probably whittle you down to nothing. So respond, decide what you want to say ahead of time and put it up the exact same way. There's on the sheet that talks a little bit about the initiative for petitions. On the back side of that is a screenshot where you can go to Amazon and get a book called Scammed, written by Norman Kincaid. The reason I love that book is because he's got the wording for all those Freedom of Information requests, and I just stole it right out of that book. Called him up and said, could I? He said, please. And so I just stole it right out of there. Now it'll be the one right next to Tom, the second one in. But I do think it might be in that. I think it's on the back, because I can see it on the back on that last sheet. So if you flip that sheet over, right? Okay, now flip it over. That's it, right there. So, and I just simply, now he doesn't have the sentence of allow me to come in and view the records if it's going to be over this amount, because those are all federal. And federal says as long as that you're not using it to make money off of it, then you don't have to be charged for it. So for anything local, however, that's different. And so I add that sentence of if it's going to be more than this much, please call me and I'll make an appointment.
I know this is a different topic, but can you make the comment that you and I had earlier about the governor's office on the data center in Oklahoma?
Data centers. Okay. So if you don't know, well, let me break this down a little bit very quickly on data centers. There are data centers, of course, is server storage for computers and AI and things like that. There are cooling systems because all of that computer stuff, servers generate heat. And so they have cooling systems on them to keep all those servers cool. Now there are varying forms. You have a kind of like an antifreeze system. You have a fan system, and fan systems are noisy, so when you see articles in the paper about people complaining about noise from data centers, that means they have a fan drying system. And then they have water cooling, so that's water evaporation. They run water through it, the water evaporates, it keeps everything cool. That's the most standard, the most common, the quietest, and the cheapest to run. So that's the preferred for data centers. They drink a lot of water. If you put it in Google, you'll find that the average is 300,000 gallons a day, on average. There are some that we've seen that are actually earmarked here in Oklahoma. I can't remember where, I think it's further south than you, that is earmarked to drink 2.5 million gallons of water a day. So now President Trump, you have to remember, he's of the older generation. He remembers the Cold War, right? He remembers the nuclear arms race and remembers the landing to the moon race. And so he believes everything is about a race. We have to be on top and ahead of it. And so he is marching on the data center bandwagon. Let's get it, let's do it, let's put them out there. Okay, so my argument is if you want them and you think you need them, there should be no way they belong west of the Missouri River. And the reason I said that is because when he came out and he said that we need to do data centers, he said we have all this federal land, we need to put them on federal land. Well, guess where most of the federal land is? To the west, in areas that have major water problems already. And now you want to put in these big guzzling, just to put this in perspective, Las Vegas, Nevada has data centers. So I was like, no way, because if you look at the water, there should be no data centers west. So the reason I say that is because Governor Kelly, who's a Democrat, is created these water committee in the state legislature, and she said it's to clean the silt out of our man-made lakes. And Kansas has a lot of man-made lakes. They are silting in. And the minute that committee was created, she slapped down legislation that called for a carbon credit czar and removing all of the elected positions, or opening it up to animal rights activists, really, of all the water boards in the state. It was just nightmare. This has been going on since she's been in office, and we still haven't addressed any of the silting in of the ponds. What this is about, and what she's pushing, is to get farmers to stop irrigating, to get cities to use less water, to free up that water for data centers and those type of things. So I actually have a resolution over there in a letter format on data centers. They can be fought back, and they have. And now that President Trump has endorsed them, pretty much 2-3 times a week, I am getting videos of commissioners' meetings where they are being pitched in pretty much every county in the United States. So I don't want to argue whether or not we should have data centers. The question is how many we should have, how much water we should use. At what point do we say, okay, come on now, we can't eat them, we can't drink them. So that is an issue. So when I made this statement, I was contacted by somebody claiming to work in the Oklahoma governor's office, and he told me that that eastern Oklahoma has a lot of water, probably more than Missouri and the Missouri River Basin, and that it was a very, very good place to put in data centers that has the adequate water. So if it's true, from what I can tell, he does indeed work in the budget department of the Oklahoma governor's office, but I don't know where he is on that ladder. But if he's authentic and that's true, you guys have one big fight on your hands. Probably as big as we have in Kansas. Yeah, go ahead.
They have a data center planned to be just a few miles down 75.
Around 75.
A little bit by Jinx here, a little bit farther down. And anyway, they already have one planned there, and they already had some land that they're, under, gonna try to take eminent domain.
Say that louder, we can't.
We can't hear you. They already have a data center planned just south of here.
Is that towards Banks, or, I'm sorry.
And so they do already have one. There's been a lot of people already trying to stop it before it got into the beginning. I will tell you that there's a group of people in here that helped me. We did all the documents in Tulsa Tulsa City Council. They did 10 things. The whole thing is WEF, 15-minute cities, gateways, you have to be, they're already changing into mixed
Use districts.
zoning into every neighborhood. And they're paying money to buy the land for the person to change it to mixed before they take it. So this is already going full-blown. They tried to take already a bunch of houses, and it's over towards Broken Arrow, between Tulsa and Broken Arrow. They were going after 600 houses. On the 6th house, I put this out on my email, a law company, I mean, there's a lot of lawyers that will take your cases for free. And so anyway, they came up from Texas and stopped the 6th gal that were, they already took it. They never went after anything else. But there's a bunch of laws too about eminent domain that people are not using. There's also, once they take eminent domain, they cannot build certain things, which they totally violated over there. They took this land, took those houses, and then they turned around and built some apartments.
Is
The
this-
big apartments thing is a big deal going on, and it's, like, right now, we have the most woke city, council with mayor who's about as far left as you can get. And, and then here, you have woke here in drinks.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what they tell you, honey, they're woke. We got the papers, we got the documents, there's nobody in that thing
Yeah.
through that, they're gonna add, next to this river deal.
Yeah.
And they're gonna put in electric plug-ins. You know how much electric plug-ins it's costing you? Did you know they took over the port of Tulsa, Tulsa
Yes.
did? And they sold the land to what? Buses for the corridor so that none of you have to drive your car.
Oh my God.
Electric cars, and an energy bicycle plant, which all of you wanna do bicycles over your car, I know. But anyway, they already have the statistics that we're the best state. Every 96.5% own cars. We have the shortest commute system. We have some of the best surrounding area of getting to places of any state around us. And yet we need to be reformed. So I'm just telling you, this whole thing that you're talking about has been here, and they're now going through Creek County.
Yep.
We've got, now, anything you hear about INCOG, just follow INCOG. Billions of dollars coming into Oklahoma. Billions.
And not just coming in. So one of the things that they are doing, and particularly, they figured out, I think it was here in Oklahoma, there's a couple of counties, Trent Luce talks about this, where he and a fellow went in and took a look at some of the records, because they were asking for easements on the transmission line, I believe it was, or a CO2 pipeline.
Yeah.
It was a CO2 pipeline. They were looking for easements for that pipeline, so they went in and looked onto the property of the neighbors who they know already signed off on it, and they found out that the developing company actually took out a mortgage against the easements that they already have. So that's one of the ways that they are funding these construction pipes. I think the one that you're talking about, is that not the one that is expected to drink 2.5 million gallons?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And also, we got a whole bunch of stuff that's sent up, actually my assistant found the first one that in Texas, of all the water, and then we have a whole slew of stuff. And actually, I'm leaving tomorrow to be with a bunch of the Trump team and hear how the heck they're gonna pull this sucker down. Because, we're trying to stop Trump with the data centers. This is just like crazy land. And so, Elon's trying to come out when he's gonna do some kind of electrical through, space, whatever. And so, it's all this, but the thing is I think that here again, Trump does listen to certain
Yes.
people.
Yep.
And we're gonna talk to those certain people who take that information and present it.
So if I had the opportunity,
They've almost completed the one out by me.
Oh, they're almost, well, see, I knew they were,
That's right off the turnpike at 11th Street.
they've had this plan for a number of years.
if I could sit down with, Trump in any way, shape or form and say, here's what you need to do, is I would argue, okay, I understand the need for data centers. The state of Virginia has the most right now. The question that I would have is, do you have a database where you already know where all the data centers are? Because as far as I can tell, they don't. The federal government does not know how many data centers are in existence right now. So then how can you argue that we need to put in a whole bunch more when you don't even know how many you have? And so that's where I would start, because you're looking at crashing an economy here. Kind of like, it reminds me of the ostriches and the farming back in the 1990s. Everybody was importing ostriches, and the ostriches was going to be the new meat, and it's great. And everybody took mortgages out on their farms, put ostriches out there. There was no market for it, and a whole bunch of people ended up, bankrupt because of that. So I would say, because he's an economic guy, right? He's a business guy. So then that would be what I ask him is, okay, how many do we need? And then the question then is, if we do need them, where should they be? And
Well, you need to do an alternative to data centers.
yeah,
So this is the thing I'm learning. When you go to complain,
you have to have
you
an
better have a
alternative.
solution.
Yes, yep.
And I have many people that come to us, and so we uncovered all the, database in the voting,
Mhm.
which is in multiple states and millions of people, blah, 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 fake names, the whole bit. But, they were going out, and I said, whoa, 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 before we go out, we're gonna have a plan of how we clean those things, how we lock them down. And then Trump came up, when we went through the whole thing, which he's coming out with, is he's wanting to go back to nothing but paper, no machine.
Yeah.
Right.
And no pre-voting, he's wanting no pre-voting.
Yeah.
And that they're voted, you just open up more centers and they're counted the same day.
That's actually really good advice that I like to try to do with everybody, is always have a complaint is just a complaint without a solution. You don't have to be locked into that solution, because you don't have all the ideas that are out there, and there are people with ideas out there, but you have to have a solution, and they'll tend to listen to you better if you have a solution to offer. That is good.
Something to go.
Something, and it can be something small, like, could we please determine how much data is being used in our county, and therefore determine how much we need, what is the projected outlook? So Jenks itself, according to their own paperwork, grew by 60%. Obviously, you need a comprehensive plan, but can we do one without subdivision regulations, would be what I would
You
ask.
have an electric grid that can't handle it either.
Exactly.
They can't even handle the electric car.
That's, yep. Hold on, I got this one back here, it's been holding her hand up forever, go ahead.
Not to be a bearer of more bad news, but, I have heard from good intel, people are giving me information, that Sand Springs is proposing 3 data centers to be brought into West Tulsa and Sand Springs area. One of them in Berry Hill by the TCC West campus is what I'm being told. Problem is, Berry Hill gets their water from Tulsa, it's very weird, but Sand Springs gets their water from Skytip. So there's a major problem happening, because, it's right there by neighborhoods, TCC West campus. It's gonna be very hazardous. Where are we gonna get the water when we are?
So it's not just, and we're focused on data centers right now, but you have to remember too, battery plants, chip manufacturing, and relays for electric grid also require very intensive water cooling operations. So a good way to look for these is to look for the pipe. So Tom, what is the size of that pipe? It is a water pipe. It's,
They're putting into the battery plant?
yeah, yep,
24-inch.
24 inch, that's what it was. So minimum,
Did you
so
say
if you,
24 or 24?
24. So what is the average that goes down the road, your street?
The city of Emporia, most of theirs are 18.
18 inch, so number wise. So if you look for those bigger pipes, those 24 that supply that much water, you have a pretty good idea of where they're wanting to build these things. So that battery, that data center in Kansas City, Missouri that you offer fuel to, so regularly they tax the electric grid there, and they're asked to pull offline for the electric grid there. And then how much fuel?
I was just, like in the summertime when it gets hot and everybody's got their air conditioning on, this data center I was delivering fuel to, they've got 8 generators that are the sizes of like railroad cars. So when they come offline, cause Evergy pays them, the electric company gives this business money to come off of their grid. And they go through 4,500 gallons of diesel in an hour. Coming off this grid. So
And how long do they stay off the grid at a time?
they would come off for 8 to 10 hours at a time.
But now in
But
Texas,
they've got 8 of these big huge generators and 10 and 12,000 gallon storage tanks on this data center site to run all that. But if you think about that, I mean, when you talk about climate and wanting to, green and all these things, going over on these generators, they have the same thing. There's a wind farm near Burlington that has a generator backup production site that when the temperature gets really hot and demand goes up, and there's even a nuclear plant there, but they bring up that generator station, and when they come up, they're not quite as big, but they go through about 1,000 gallons of fuel in an hour. Just to produce.
so one of those conversations about, if you need a data center, is the open cooling evaporation the best way? Should we look at those antifreeze options? Should we look at like the nuclear water, how it comes from a lake, goes up, gets evaporated, and then is returned to that same lake? There are other options. The reason they're picking this evaporation kind is because it's just cheaper and easier.
It's another WEF.
Yeah, well, that too, but
I
it's
mean, and
for
the whole
for
whole
the,
economic form is to kill you.
right, but I actually, we sat down with a data center developer and the one who built it in Las Vegas, in fact, and he was explaining to us the cost. So fan is comparable, but it generates the most complaints amongst neighbors. So then the second favorite option is the evaporation cooling system. It's easier to build, easier to maintain, just generally cheaper. So
Why don't they just put them on the coast?
there's actually Elon made a post about, that's smart, right, on the coast, but you're also dealing with salt water. They can't handle salt in that evaporation system. But there is talk, Elon mentioned, about putting them in orbit, right? Because you don't need any cooling up there.
Love that.
So there are other options out there to be explored. And then the other question that I often get is, well, if data is advancing and we start reducing the amount of servers and the size of the servers that we need, then it's naturally going to weed itself out. No, it's not. They're just going to fill up that empty space with more servers. So, but
What is the reason they are giving for having these in dense locations? Dense residential rather than out in the middle?
oh, good question. So when I've seen it pitched at county commission meetings, what the developer is saying is that it's going to bring jobs. You're going to have so many jobs. You're going to have a whole new neighborhood full of jobs.
You only have to know how to do data in the advanced stage.
Right? But then there was one that I watched in which the county attorney was a little bit wise to this, and he kept hammering and hammering and hammering on him, and got him all the way down to confess that, okay, it's probably not going to employ more than 25 people full time. So, but it was going to be a 250-acre data center. But that's how they pitch it to the county or to the city. It's going to bring you lots of money. You're going to have, even though you're giving us a tax break, it's going to uptake your economy because of all the workers that are going to move in. That's something that Evergy always says about these solar and wind. It's all these jobs that are created. I actually sat in a committee at the state legislature in Kansas, and I listened to them talk about the 21 full-time positions for the entire state of Kansas that wind and solar has created.
Well, it shows the fiction of it, because you're trying to put 400 units on 1 acre of people and have a 250-acre data center that employs 20 people. It shows you the fiction of this, the insanity of it.
Insanity, yes. Definitely not fiction, because that's exactly what's happening in China.
Basing
Their own,
Numbers.
yeah.
reasons and their numbers
Yeah.
on a fiction.
Yes, basing their numbers on fiction, yes.
Would you do me a favor? I need to know your name. I am brand new. I just bought a farm about a year ago, and I'm ready to go. I need to know her name. What is your Christy? She's so smart.
I'm Christy Glester, and we're in Faith and Freedom. Okay. For network, and also we build bridges. But anyway, I didn't literal bridges. Like literal. Yeah, we just built that bridge across the Arkansas River with the pedestrian bridge with the
Okay,
arch.
so I'm told we have about 5 minutes,
Thank you so much.
so I'm gonna, you had a question? Yeah.
So we should all be concerned about any changes in our own zoning.
Correct.
Because government lies. And we went through this in Owasso, they went through it in Wagner County, and it took a very smart senator that kept these group homes that they were going to put in neighborhoods. So once they do that, they can, supposedly, it's the federal government, that's what I was told, that has the right to change our zoning. It's not the state. But we were able to shut down these 2 group homes, and, what they're trying to do is put in single-family dwellings, bring in, like you said, those high-rise.
Stack and packs, yeah.
And it can happen overnight, and we need to keep a close watch on our own state legislators.
So all of your zoning regulations through every community is dictated at the state level. So now there are federal grants, primarily through HUD and economic development, to try to shift and change that. But it is first mandated, that front door is at your state legislative level. And then based on those laws, your counties and your cities act. Now, the most important thing to remember is all of this came in incrementally. So even though you may have lost a particular battle in this area today, you can undo that incrementally, which is exactly what we've been doing successfully in Lyon County.
Well, we fought this and it didn't happen. I actually had a face-to-face conversation with Senator Hayes, and he is the one that personally told me that it was a federal government that decides the zoning.
He's not quite trustworthy.
So anyway, what I'm saying is.
That's a nice way of saying
We
it.
have to stay on top of these
Stay on top.
legislators.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, are you saying that this is all coming down from a, world economic globalist perspective? And this was all part of like Agenda 21? And so who is making?
So most of these decisions are corporate monopolies. Okay, so let me give you a really quick example before we wrap up here. So I got asked to look into the bird flu origins and how it's going to impact agriculture, okay? So I started digging. And what I discovered is Department of Defense money is going over to Ukraine. Ukraine is building chicken factories, processing chicken with Department of Defense money. It is a British company in Cargill that is building that factory. They are undercutting chicken prices. So instead of $1 for a chicken leg, it's 76 cents. They're undercutting it. It got so bad, and how they found out about it is it hit the papers in Poland. Poland had an embargo on all poultry products coming from Ukraine to protect Polish farms. And so then the question was, okay, what kind of protection is going on here? Well, all across the UK and Europe, where all of these chicken prices are being undercutted, these chicken and poultry farms are going bankrupt. Cargill and Tyson, who's not even part of the plant business, but sees an opportunity here, is coming in and buying up all the chicken farms to integrate the market, so they own that chicken from the moment it's hatched all the way to it hits the table, which is exactly what's already here in the United States. So just to clarify, your Department of Defense taxpayer dollars are going over to Ukraine to prop up a food monopoly. Now take that and add that to Department of Transportation, to every clothing, every single product and category of our economy. That's what's going on. So the main people behind this are those great big huge monopolies jumping in bed with World Economic Forum elites. And when I say World Economic Forum, you'll notice that it's the same people running through this land trust, through World Wildlife Federation, through the UN, through NATO, birds of a feather. and they often are interchanging jobs back and forth in between.
Okay, so those are really the ones running the world, and that all of our corporations then are tied into, and that the corporations are the ones funding our government.
Yes,
And then, of
through
course, you
through
just-
partnership, and that's where that whole, whenever I hear public-private partnership, it makes me cringe.
Right.
So it is, definitely goes back to that whole lobbying thing. It is,
Which
public-private
is
partnership.
absolutely
Yep.
illegal, and dual citizens should not be in our government, and
No,
lobby
but
should
that's
have to
we need a
register
speaker
as
on that
sworn
then.
agents. But they are.
Yeah, Christie.
One last thing. We have private partnerships in Tulsa, Jinx, and all these surrounding areas that are funded through INCOG. And they're setting up regions and making decisions. Now, guess who did the last, what do you call it, where we counted everybody? Census. INCOG funds. With the census, and then all of a sudden, you have Tulsa mayor being voted on by Osage people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is that not a clue? I mean, so the thing is that this partnership, right now, there's not one park ran by any city. They're all ran by private corporations. And I could go on a long list, but you will see almost nobody in the government is running anything. It's been, the authority has been given to these corporations.
Well, like Palantir now, Palantir has everything on it.
Angel, that was fantastic.
Yes.
It was so educational. Thank you so much. We need to band together and get a lot of this stopped. Does anybody, you're running for office, so anybody who wants to make an announcement running for office, I can give you just a couple of minutes. Do you want to
Yes.
introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. Amazing.
Can you
amazing
come up
meeting.
here, please, so we can get you on
yes.
camera? Thank you.
Yes, so thanks for having me. Amazing meeting, wow. This really, my head is buzzing, but I'm Chris Meredith. I'm running for insurance commissioner. Usually I talk about your rates and the home, that's the main reason I got in. But this also awakened a lot of things of, the other reason I'm running is because I work in insurance. I've worked there almost 25 years for, I'm not gonna say the company, because this is a separate venture. But a lot of the reason I got in is because of the stuff we see with corporations. I mean, the DEI stuff, I sit in meetings where I had to learn my pronouns and all this stuff.
Jesus.
And I was just like, I was upset, we're joining the UN climate thing, I'm just like, what is going on? And in a company that was, man, it was USA when I first started. I mean, it couldn't be more American. But thankfully, in recent years, we've had a big change in leadership and things have changed. And it's going back the other direction. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with Trump. I mean, he's changed the whole culture of things, and thank God. But with that being said, on this, so just kind of to add on to this piece, I go to these national meetings where all insurance carriers are there, various vendors, and legislators who work in insurance are there, and it's bipartisan, but you can bet your britches. They're pushing ESG, this is part of the E. And they want to put it on, I mean, we talk about these different corporations, they're not all the same. I guarantee you, we're not Cargill. We're told what to do. And they come in with these rating agencies and they say, you need to put ESG factors in who you're underwriting. You can't do guns, you can't do oil and energy. And if you're not there to fight against that stuff, then, you know, they make the policies and it just trickles right down into all the states. Legislators will take it and run it. So you've got to have a voice at these meetings. We have Mark Tedford's there, he's a great voice. But there are a lot of liberal voices up there telling, trying to push this stuff through those meetings. And as commissioner, that's one of my main jobs, is to push against things like the Federal Insurance Office, DC trying to tell Oklahomans what to do, and these corporations trying to push ratings on insurance companies to make us raise your rates because you live in Oklahoma. And, you know, I'm just thinking about the autonomy and the loss of liberty for Oklahomans. These carbon credits, I mean, you're gonna use more carbon if you have a family. You're gonna use more carbon if you're in a state like Oklahoma where our weather can go hot and can go freezing. And we have to drive in, you know, we got, you know, we're gonna be stuck in that. And, you know, those are big concerns of mine. So as commissioner, if you choose me, you can bet I'll be up there fighting for us. Yes.
We'll hold you to it.
Yes.
What is your name?
Chris Meredith.
And who else is running along with you?
So right now, Marty Quinn is the other candidate.
Okay, and are you currently a lobbyist?
I am not currently a lobbyist.
Have you been a lobbyist?
I have been a lobbyist.
For
Long
the
time.
insurance
Yes,
commission?
yes,
Is this a state position?
state position.
We recently changed insurance companies, and the one we left was really big, everybody knows them. And that agent told us that within 5 years, some of the biggest insurance companies are planning to pull out of Oklahoma. What would you do to fight that? Is there anything that an insurance commissioner could do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Number one, you've got to reduce cost and risk in the state. That is the biggest problem here. The problem is we're building homes, and I had a paper, we're a bullseye for hail, you know, hail and wind over the last 50 years. And what happens in Oklahoma is insurance companies make money for 8 years, and then boom, they're hit and lose. That whole 8 years is gone. And so they're afraid to write here because we're building disposable roofs in a place where, you know, the wind and hail come down the plains. And other states have kind of shown us some ways to fix that. And, you know, Alabama's put a fortified program that has saved, the last hurricane study that came through in Alabama, they've got 70,000 fortified homes on the coast. The last Hurricane Sally that went through there, they did a study. If the fortified homes versus the non-fortified homes, if all of them were fortified, you would have saved 67% less damage. It was billions of dollars. And so that's what we need to do here, is have a fortified program very similar. Insurance companies should be giving you a discount. You should not be paying the same rate if you put on a fortified roof. And I'll be fighting for that as well. But that's the kind of thing that we have to do. And then litigation is the other piece. Oklahoma's a litigious environment. You're paying your premium, it's going right into the lawyer's hands. And most of that money's not going to the victims. So we've got to have reforms just like Florida did. Florida put in litigation reforms that cause rates to drop, more insurance companies into the market, and then you have a better market, more choices for you. Any other questions? Yes.
So we've had quite a few storms here in Oklahoma, especially our area, that I feel have been man-made created. And the insurance companies now, you know, you have your deductible, but if it's regarding any kind of damage to your home, when one of these storms take place, that deductible doesn't apply. It goes by the percentage of the value of your home.
1%.
Why did that change, and who changed it, and how can we change that?
So most of the insurance companies, that was a way to reduce their risk by making the customers share more of the risk. And that usually does two things. It causes, you know, I can give you an example for myself. I mean, I had to go to a 5% deductible. I wanted my premium to come down. I had a roofer, they come by, they knock on your door, hey, you know, you got damage, and I'm like, well, that's interesting, because my roofer's just left. Why don't you come in and tell me about that? You're knocking on my door saying I need a roof, and I just had it replaced. But it caused me to, that was another situation, but years later, same situation, they come look at my roof, it made me think, do I really need it? Because this is, now it's coming out of my pocket, 5% of my house, I mean, we're talking 20 grand for me. So I'm like, there's really nothing wrong with my roof, so I don't replace it. So there's that part, and that causes, you know, us to have a little bit more hand on the risk, on making decisions on replacing roof or not.
Okay,
I mean,
but
that's
it
why.
didn't answer her question. When did that happen?
When
and
did it
how
happen?
Did it happen?
It's been years. I mean, I had a 2% many years ago, so they just slowly kind of walked it back. It's just a product offering is all it is.
Well, I have USAA insurance. This was many years ago in Texas. Somewhere they put that 1% value of your home as your deductible on there. They sent me my new policy later that year. I didn't read it because I didn't change anything. We had a huge hailstorm. I went to make a claim and they told me it was 2%. And I should have known. I should have known. They sent me the policy. I
You
should have
known
read that.
that thing, right?
I didn't change anything. They changed it for me.
No, again, this is why I'm running, because I've been behind the curtain, and this happened to me. So, yeah, I knew my deductible changed because I picked it, but you know what else they did? They changed me from a replacement cost to an ACV. Does anyone know what that means? I didn't know about it. It came in like some email, which I'm in the industry for 25 years. I should know this, right? I did miss it, and I'm sitting there going, how in the world does a normal person who's not in insurance recognize this? So one of my plans is I've got several reforms that, you know, once I'm selected as your nominee as a Republican, we're putting them in place. I'm not waiting. This stuff has already been done in other places. We can make sure we're not paying for California's losses. We can make sure that deductibles, I mean, 1-2%, that's great, but who knows what that is? Math, right? They need to be required to put on the dollar, so you see it. You know exactly how much money it's going to cost you. You need to see that. Arkansas has done it. We can do it here.
Well, we had it before.
Can we make sure that
We had it before.
should your house get destroyed by a tornado, that you are getting,
Replacement
paid by
cost?
your insurance company 100%. You've paid your premiums on time, every time, but in California, they'll pay 40% maybe 60%. It needs to be 100% what you signed up for, what you're paying.
That's absolutely the core function of the department, is to make sure that if they sell you a promise, they better deliver.
Yeah.
I mean, that's serious business, yes. I'm from claims, so I know what that means. Yes.
Hey, so mine's medical, because you would be over medical as well, and medical insurance,
Yep.
correct? What steps will you take to get rid of the atrocious Obamacare that we're dealing with? It is not helping people with medical care, and the reason why I'm saying that, I come from I worked on medical insurance at St. Francis, and we had, in early 2000s, the best marketplace for insurance. We had Pacific Care, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I can tell you 10 or 20 opportunities of places that you can go. That is really where we need to get back to, because that's where you had lower premiums, lower costs as far as paying out there. Because now for me to have, get on Obamacare as a self-employed business, it would cost for a family of 4. I'm also Native American. Our monthly output would have been almost $700 to $800 per month. Even with being a Native American, that's atrocious. So right now, my husband is the only covered. I just use my Native American because it's free. But my husband still, his bill is over $550. But the deductible is keeping it low. I think we're out, total max is like 5,000 if it was but he has to have medical insurance because we're on roofs and things like that. And so I say all of that is we need to get back to the marketplace that we had. That was when everything was down and low. You could find some kind of insurance that was in your budget, and your deductible is not ridiculous, like $14,000. We're never gonna hit that, ever. That's ridiculous for our family. But, so, those are my pointed questions for you, because this is something that's affected our family.
Yeah, I don't have an answer on, how to back out of it. It's gonna be complex. That's something I would like to see happen. Obviously, I remember those days too. And, I mean, my main concerns right now have been just access to our medicine. I mean, I got a son that's type 2 diabetic, and the PBMs are getting in the middle of what my doctor says we need. And delaying our medication, and I'm like, he's diabetic, he dies without insulin. Why can't I get my insulin,
Well, that goes to whoever's over the head of, because there was times
when I couldn't get someone covered. It's been there, it's just got even worse, but I had to fight for the patient to get coverage, so I had to put in a request to the top doctor, because they're the one that's really over the whole show. And I had to go, no, this patient needs to go to a urology referral for a urology problem, and we are doing a referral. Their doctor is saying they need to go there, they have coverage, send the referral. But we have to be a lot more bold in that area, but our insurance, we have to get control of who's overseeing the insurance, and they're really controlling it, and our doctors are not allowed to do what they're supposed to do, and they can't say, they have all this red tape, you need to go do this and do that. Why? If the doctor thinks I need to go straight for a CT scan, why do I need to go through 50 million other things to get there? So,
The pre-approval process is
It's
ridiculous.
awesome. And what about, okay, insurance, what about getting insurance to actually help people that wanna stay healthy, you know, like real health care?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what about health care? Because the system right now is 100% drug care, okay? You have a little symptoms, go and you talk to your doctor. He knows nothing about
Here's a
your
pill.
diet. He knows
Yeah.
nothing about what the hell happened to your body that depleted all your minerals. But he does have a drug that is gonna mask that symptom. But that drug then gives you more symptoms, but don't worry, they have another drug for that symptom. And so that's just the big fat lie. And then don't get me started about the death vaccine.
We won't get you started. We are already 20 minutes past, so we gotta keep going.
You can't do anything about that, Laura.
I'll give you two pieces, I'll give you two quick things. One, for yours, insurance department, my biggest, what I did for farmers, you said I was a lobbyist at one point. Yeah, I was, because we were fighting for good things to help the state, and I want to bring that to the department. I want to be your advocate. Advocacy kept part of the department, I want to turn way up. So the things that we need to get done for you, we lead the way. I mean, if it means pulling in roofers, working as a team to collaborate and push things through, then we'll do that. And changing the health coverage, doing that. Your idea, mitigation is my second piece. So we're talking about building better homes. On the health side, I'm all about health. Mitigating the health, I mean, if you're healthy, if you've got a primary doctor, then you probably won't get to that, where you're sick. I want to prevent that from happening. So that's the other piece I want to get to, is that my wife's a dietitian, so she's gonna be mad at it.
I have a question, real quick. Have you been recruited to run?
I have not.
Okay.
I wake up every day just to do this.
We can literally take questions afterwards. We're 20 minutes past our time.
This is a passionate group.
I know.
In support of her information, since we passed this law, I can tell you right now, if we overturn the insurance bill that we had before in Oklahoma, we can stop all state taxes. I'm an accountant, I could do the numbers. And number two, throw it back to the private sector. And like her, there was, I don't know how many we had, 2,550. We're down to only 4 in all of Oklahoma. Only 4.
We definitely need to work on it. We have one final question. Do you agree with the 7 points of saving Oklahoma?
I was gonna say I agree with you.
Okay. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Our speaker for October is Gabe Woolley.